I love the beach. In fact, I think it's a near perfect place. There's just one thing that prevents it from being perfect, and unfortunately that's that right there.
Hi, I'm Matt. Unfortunately, in any situation, I have the ability to immediately imagine the worst outcome possible. Not only am I sure this worst case scenario will happen, I know it will happen to me. In an effort to take back some control of my life, I'm doing a deep dive into the fears that plague me most. In an attempt to answer once and for all, should I be afraid? Today, shark attacks. Okay, so if you're like me, your level of enjoyment of life is constantly bumping up against the ceiling of anxiety and negative thoughts. Things that you should enjoy are sometimes or often ruined by the idea that something bad can and will happen. And I get it. The idea that we could accidentally leave the safety of our own domain where we are the apex predator and wander into the territory of a super fast murder machine that cannot be reasoned with is terrifying. And sometimes the notion that all I have to do is just punch a shark in the nose is neither empowering or believable. Also, side note, does that actually work? We'll talk about it. And though I might not be able to convince myself that shark attacks don't happen, perhaps I can arm myself with some facts and information in order to lessen my fear. So let's start with talking about just how likely I am to be attacked by a shark. Like we've discussed before, and we kind of know it to be true but ignore it anyway, the likelihood of something happening should kind of be directly proportional to the amount of brain space it takes up, right? So it's easy for people who don't think this way to say, well, if you don't want to get attacked by a shark, don't go in the ocean. Freaking obviously! But that sentence shows a complete fundamental misunderstanding with 1, how my brain works, and 2, I want to live my life the way I want it, free of fear. All that said, for me and many like me, I don't really care what the chances are. I just want to know, because the not knowing is sometimes the greatest fear of all. Okay, once again, big shout out to the research department for looking all of this stuff up. In a second, we'll take a look at what they found. But first, on a personal note, the whole point of this series is to make everyone feel better about life in some way. So, if my handwriting does that for you, good. Let's talk about what they found. All right, so the Florida Museum of Natural History has a yearly report on shark attacks called the International Shark Attack File. Sounds ominous, right? And kind of cool. So every year the museum investigates human-shark interactions from around the world and compiles them in this report. According to the report from 2020, the museum investigated 129 human-shark interactions. That's it. That's what 129 looks like. Of those interactions, 59 were considered unprovoked attacks, meaning that a human had not provoked a shark but were in their habitat. I know what you're saying. Matt, who would provoke a shark? Well, they're not provoked attacks, but they are described as when the human begins interacting with the shark. For example, feeding or petting or, sometimes attacking. Of the 59 unprovoked attacks, 33 of those occurred in the US, making us the world leader in unprovoked shark bites with 58% of all attacks worldwide. We're number 1 in all the best stuff. Within the states, Florida is the one with the most unprovoked bites, with 16 cases in 2020. In 2020, there were 13 fatalities related to sharks, with 10 of them being unprovoked. 2020's numbers for unprovoked shark attacks are lower than in previous years. Maybe it's because we've finally come to an understanding with the sharks, or maybe it's because everyone was supposed to stay in their home the whole year. From 2015 to 2018, there was an average of 80 unprovoked shark attacks each year. Additionally, the museum that runs the International Shark Attack File also runs a web page that compares the odds of shark attacks happening to you against other things. Now, despite the odds of a shark attack being incredibly low, what's our motto? If it can happen, it will happen to me. We should probably stop saying that, by the way. But I am going to go over some ways to be better prepared in the event that it does happen. But first, I want to talk about why we find sharks so scary to begin with, because like I said, there's more rational fears out there. So why does that prevent me from not thinking about sharks when I'm not near sharks? Not thinking about them when I'm not near. Yeah, that checks out. Okay, so I think one of the things that makes shark attacks so scary is that before you can even get to the shark biting you part, it inherently kind of involves a number of other fears. Of course, there could be aquaphobia, which is just the general fear of water, but it more likely involves thalassophobia, which is a fear of not just water, but the immense size and scope of large bodies of water, or the creatures that inhabit them. The idea of being out in the middle of the open ocean with limited resources, no control, and surrounded by creatures which are so foreign they might as well be aliens from a different planet is enough to send a chill or two up the spine. On top of that, one might have an experiential phobia coupled with this. This is the result of an exposure to a stimulus. For example, when I was a kid, I had this boat that overturned, sending me deep under the water. I survived, of course, I'm here, but that experience alone was troubling enough. I shudder to think about that on top of having my leg eaten off by one of nature's most efficient assassins. And you might not even need to have experienced something similar. There are non-experiential phobias as well, which can result from simply hearing about a traumatic event. Or, in the case of a lot of people, seeing a movie about one. Additionally, the fear of the ocean is actually what a Dr. Franklin Schneer refers to as, quote, a prepared fear, meaning it's rooted in our instinct to survive. We're not fish and can't breathe underwater, so it stands to reason that going there kind of interferes with our survival in general. On top of that, 95% of the ocean is unexplored. If a shark can make a name for itself in a place that's also home to colossal squid, poisonous jellyfish, and maybe even the kraken, we don't know for sure, it's got to be worth respecting. And of course, it's worth noting that Jaws, one of cinema history's most famous horror movies, was about a monster shark, and very well might have contributed to the shark's place in the pantheon of all-time greatest fears. But now that we understand the fear and its likelihood, what can we do about it? All right. As we mentioned earlier, if you don't want to get attacked by a shark, limit your exposure to sharks. Don't go to places where sharks are. However, if you want to live life to the fullest, and you must appreciate Mother Nature's marvelous gifts that are the oceans and beaches, here are some ways to be prepared. Let's just get in there right now. For starters, when it comes to who was attacked, 61% of the time, it's people partaking in board sports or surfing. Particularly in the surf zone, an area that often has sharks, is where most of these people spend their time while doing these activities. Additionally, their actions like paddling, falling off their board, and splashing can attract sharks. So, of course, if you must do those things, you are assuming a very low but still existent risk. Luckily for you, the Florida Museum of Natural History has compiled some helpful tips. Always swim with someone else, as sharks are less likely to attack groups. Stay close into shore so you can stay around others and have close access to help if needed. Do not swim at night or at dawn or dusk, as these are the hours when sharks are more active. Avoid splashing excessively on the water's surface, as this can sound like a fish struggling at the surface. Avoid wearing shiny jewelry, as it can reflect in the water, resembling fish scales. And avoid areas with lots of fish or where people are fishing. If you did all those things and you find yourself in the very rare circumstance that you are being attacked by a shark, you should fight back. Like we discussed before, hit the shark in the nose, preferably with something other than your body, and try to get out of the water. If you need to, repeatedly hit the shark on the nose, but know that it becomes less effective the more you do it. And if you are bitten, claw at the gills or eyes, which are their sensitive areas. Hopefully, after all that, you find yourself either less worried about being attacked by a shark and or more empowered in the event that you are attacked by one. The oceans and beaches are incredible places full of miracles and majesty, and honestly some of my favorite places to visit. So I hope that if going to the beach, relaxing and enjoying the waves is something that you do in fact want to do, you can understand the minimal risk, be prepared, and most importantly,
live life anyway.